Hi, and welcome to the 27th video in our C# for Beginners tutorial series. Today we are going to be taking a look at stacks, and then the next video we're going to be taking a look at queues to finish off our collections data structures in C#. So basically a stack is very much kind of like a tower of blocks. So you're going to be putting objects on top of each other and only really being able to access to grab the top one or see the top one. So it is first in, last out. So compared to a queue, which is first in, first out, the stacks are more of a first in and last out situation. So examples of a stack in use in programming would be similar to the back button on your browser. When you hit back, you get the most recent page that you've been to. If you hit back again, you're going to get the second most recent. And then if you click back all the way, you're eventually going to get to the first page you visited, but it's going to be the last page that you're going to get. So that is an example of a stack. There might be a couple other applications for a stack as well, like reversing a array. You can use a stack. You could take an array and insert each item into the stack and then just iterate through the stack, and you're going to get the reverse of that array. So let's actually go ahead and let's see how these stacks work and see the different methods that we can use with the stack. So to create a stack here, as you've probably guessed it, we are going to use the stack keyword. And then we are going to do an open and so the greater than, lesser than symbol. We're going to put an int. So this is actually a generic data structure or a generic collection that we've seen before with the dictionaries now, and a few other collections are also generic, so they get the benefits and disadvantages of the generic, but at least it does that type checking for you. And we're going to call this int stack. And we're going to make this equal to a new stack int open and close parentheses. Now to add items to the stack, it is actually just going to be as simple as int stack dot push, and then you're going to put in your item. So here we are a stack of integers here, so we could put the integer 0, and then we could just put a semicolon here, and let's just put in a bunch of numbers here. So let's put in 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so once we actually pushed all these items here, so we're going to have in our stack 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 0 is going to be at the bottom and 5 is going to be at the top. Now, in order to actually, so there's two things that we can do to get the item at the top of the stack. So there is a int stack dot peak and a dot pop. So pop will actually go ahead and remove and return that top item, whereas peak will just look at it and return the value. It won't actually remove it at all. So that might be beneficial if you don't actually want to remove that item. You just want to see what's there, but you don't necessarily actually want to pop that off of the stack yet. So let's go ahead and let's just see what we can do here. So console.writeLine. And let's do an int stack dot peak, and we have an open and close parentheses. So if we actually just run this here, we are going to see that we get the item 5 because that is the last thing that we pushed onto our stack. So it is going to be the first thing that we can actually peek at. Now, let's say if we actually did a peek before we put any items in. So let's see what actually happens here. Now, as we can see, we actually get an unhandled exception. We get a stack empty. So you cannot peek or pop if your stack is actually empty. But they do provide you a method that can help you out with this. So we can actually do so very similarly to the dictionary, to the hash table, and a few other collections, we actually have the ability to try something and return that value out. So what we can do is do an if statement. If int stack dot try peak, and then we could do an out int, let's name this variable temp. If it succeeds, let's go ahead and let's do a console dot write line temp, and then else we can say console dot write line, and we could just write out a string here and just say stack is empty. So if we run this here, we are going to get our message of stack is empty and we get 5. Now, very similarly to if we copy paste this code here and paste it down here. Now, the only thing you're going to have to remove is that int because we've actually created this variable. So what I would do in this case is just create the int temp up here and just remove this int here and just always just kind of point it out to that. And this way, at least you can get that value. So let's go ahead and let's check that out here. So there we have it. The output is exactly the same, but this one is a little bit safer because we are not just assuming that the stack has all these items. Maybe we're letting the user push and peek the stack as needed. So maybe they haven't pushed anything to the stack yet and they said peek. At least that would check for that. And then if they do push an item in, you'd still want to make sure that that stack has items before you actually go and peek. Now, of course, you can use the property of there is a int stack dot count, which will let you know how many items are in that stack. So if we actually just say here console dot write line and then do a interpolated string, and let's just say stack has int stack dot count items. So if we actually run this here, we are going to see that the stack has 6 items, and that is because 0 and then 1 through 5. We have 6 items here. And if we actually just copy paste this line at the top here, we will see that the stack has 0 items, stack is empty, and then we get to the top item of the stack, and then we have stack has 6 items. That is actually perfect. So now let's actually go ahead and iterate through that stack and let's pop the items. So there's actually 2 ways that you can really do this. So we can do this using a while loop, which we've seen before. So if we actually do an int stack dot count is greater than 0, let's go ahead and let's do a console dot write line, and we are going to say int stack dot pop, and let's go ahead and let's try that out here. So here we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, we pushed it in that opposite order. So that is perfect. It does exactly what we've expected it to do. Now this is using a while loop. Now, of course, because we know that there is a try peek, you can actually do it a slightly different way. So if we actually say that, so let's remove this here. Or actually what we can do is let's just repush all these items. And then what we're going to say is while int stack dot try, and we could say a try pop out temp. Then we can say console dot write line, and we can say temp here, and then else. Well, actually, it's just going to be a while. We don't have an else because it's not an if statement. So while we can actually pop, let's go ahead and let's just write that out here. So if we can actually try this, and let's actually just separate these out here. So let's do a console dot write line, and let's say this is the while with count loop. And then this is the while with try pop. All right, and there we have it. So it is exactly the same. So you can either use the count or you can say the try pop. That is completely up to you. They are pretty much both the same. Efficiency wise, I would say probably the count is more efficient because you're not actually trying to do something and then outputting it to a variable. You're just checking the count to see if it's greater than 0, whereas this one, you're checking to see if it's got a value and then you're sending that to a variable. So you're doing like a variable assignment, but then you're simply printing out that variable, whereas this, you're doing another method call. So in all, they are probably very much similar. I don't think that in your application, unless it's very data intensive, I don't think that it would really make a difference. But just be aware that you do have these two different methods that you can actually use. So you have the try pop, you have the try peek, and you have the pop, and you have the peek as well, and you have count, and the stack is always first in and last out. So that's pretty much it for stacks. They are a pretty useful thing if you need that first in and last out scenario, kind of like a back button or a undo or redo option. That could be very usable as well. In the next video, we're going to be taking a look at queues. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below in the comment section. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button. And also be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.